Okay, on this week, I'm going to be talking about grave expectations. Do you mind? All right. Um, where we are right now, we're preparing for week two. And what occurred last week um, can best be summed up in the simple word of surprise. A lot of surprises, and of course, you're going to find that because everything that's based on week one is from last year's statistics. You had a great Kansas City offense, so you're going to have another great Kansas City offense this year, right? You had, an up and coming Dallas offense and New Orleans great offense, and so it's just going to continue, right? And to a large extent, that is true. However, there's always things to consider. Number one is divisional rankings and divisional play. So you had 9 games that occurred and that were within divisions, and they are more important to teams than any other team than any other game. Not that they aren't, not that any game is of less importance, but it's more important for divisional games because it can determine your overall ranking at the end of the season. And if you're on the bubble and you have a chance to get the playoffs, it could mean a great difference in making the playoffs or not making the playoffs, or making the playoffs and having a better seed. So if it comes down to a tiebreaker and you have a better divisional ranking, better divisional record than the other guy, you'll have that higher seed, and that benefits you, in a myriad of ways. Most of all, home field advantage. So that being said, the surprises that we saw, cause us to, think in 3 different ways. We can have great expectations, and we say, "Oh, well, Bill Belichick, the train just keeps running, you know." He's just a fabulous, coordinator, and they'll probably win the Super Bowl now because it doesn't matter if Tom Brady's there or not. He's just going to keep on going, you know. Or on the other side of it is to have your team just decimated, like me and Philadelphia O-line, and say, well, anybody's going to be able to run through this Swiss cheesesteak offensive line that they have right now, and the season is lost. Or as a fantasy football mindset, I would suggest that we have was middle of the road to have a grave or a somber expectation about the whole thing, and to be looking for consistency. All right, we want players who are consistently going to be providing for us and our teams, so we get to our goal. Okay, and that's what I'm proposing right now. That in all of this, emotional stuff that you'll see throughout the, fantasy football landscape, and people prognosticating that, you're just consistently looking for that line of the the person who's working hard, who consistently does his job, the offensive line that consistently does their job, the defensive coordinator that consistently rallies his team. One person, and I said it first in the initial video that I did, was Ron Rivera. Very happy to see that he's come from a new place. And a lot of times you say, "Oh, how is a new guy going to be able to fit in?" He's done very well, and under a lot of scrutiny, a lot of attack The Washington, football team has gone under. They lose their logo. They lose their name. They lose their identity in a great many ways. They lose their sense of morality and being a moral organization because of all the scandal that has affected them, and yet they did a great job second half. But they came back and won against Philly, and a lot of intangibles going on there too, and with Ron Rivera fighting cancer and having fluids administered to him during halftime, they come back and they win the game. So it's almost like winning for the Gipper, but I'm still keen on Washington to see how much of of this sticks, how much of this is going to be consistent throughout the season. Okay, so like I said, three different ways of approaching everything. Okay, you can have the highfalutin. Oh, this is great. My team. If you're a Dallas fan, my team is going to the Super Bowl, right? Every year, my team is going to the Super Bowl, or to have. A thing like a Cleveland fan, well, it's the same old. We're not going to win anything. We're not going to even get to the playoffs. An Eeyore mentality, or to find the rational. What I find is the rational way of looking at things is to say, you're not always going to have the highs. You're not always going to have the lows, but you're looking for something where consistently you're going to be getting production, okay? And that's called grave or somber expectations. That's how I define it, okay? So, in all of these, now somber, looking at it somberly, okay? The players, or the teams rather, that lost this week, somberly, rationally, that their backs are against the wall. So now it becomes even harder for them to, win this week's games. So you have teams like Atlanta and Carolina and Cincinnati, Denver, Detroit, Houston, Indiana, Miami, Minnesota, the Giants, the Jets, Philadelphia. All of those teams, they lost last week. Now they're coming into a game this week where all of the people that they're playing are favored. Okay, so it's going to be even more difficult for them to win. Okay, and it's that much more pressure for them to win. Okay, so they're going to have to come up with a game plan that that really pushes them over the top, okay? Again, that doesn't mean fantasy-wise that, you don't play your Zach Ertz or, well, Deshaun Watson, what's the point? No. These guys are still going to compete. These are still professionals, okay? But you have to be aware of what's going on. It's good to know that stuff behind everything that you do and the pieces that you put in place. It all comes down, again, to strength of schedule, injuries, and using the waiver wire, okay? But I didn't talk about that last week, but, waiver wire is essential. Now you got major guys who went down. The number one wide receiver on Detroit, Kenny Golladay, is out for the season. Okay, who's going to replace him? Is Marvin Jones going to step up? Or is there somebody else? Okay, you got to look at that. You got to look at the notes, and you got to decide. Okay, this is the guy who's going to be taking his place. Kenny Golladay gets a lot of attention, so all of those balls that were going to be going to him is going to be divided up somehow. Is it going to go to the tight end? Is it going to go to more on Marvin Jones? You have to look at all of that. Okay. They're DeAndre Smith, who they got. He can catch the ball out of the ball field. Of course, he didn't catch that most important one at the end of the game, but he's one who's probably going to be open to getting more more looks by Matt Stafford. So that's the kind of thing that you're going to start to look for. Okay, Michael Thomas, another one. How many times was he targeted? And he had the record for the most targets and most receptions of any wide receiver in the game last year, and now he's down. High ankle sprain. That's a serious injury. So, who's going to be taking his place? Is it going to be Emmanuel Sanders? Is it going to be Kamara, who's going to be picking up some of that, or Jared Cook? You've got to be looking at that, and the people that you have, you figure, well, they're going to be getting some of that. So, those are the pieces that you want to be able to put in place to say, okay, consistently, these guys are going to be getting X amount of receptions, and this is going to help them, So, that's the kind of mindset you need to have a rational mindset into these games, and to know that, yes, they're going to be hard games, but this is how I approach it, in a rational way. Otherwise, you'll be up and down all the time. If you approach everything in a rational way, you're going to be able to, for lack of a better word, you're going to be peaceful about, and confident, rather. You'll be confident about the choice that you make. It's just simple. So that's the short and sweet of it all. But I pass that on to you all, and hope that that helps you, and we'll see what comes for next week. All right, take care. See you next week. Bye.